Welcome to the We Leaders podcast, where leaders share how to leave a legacy that makes history. I'm your host, Alana Fulvio. As a 13-time world record-holding skydiver and Olympic development athlete, psychic intuitive, and former Silicon Valley in-house talent advisor for some of the most legendary leaders and successful companies in history, there is a new bar being set for leadership. They're called We Leaders. What this means for you on this show, We Leaders will show up for you and bring their unapologetic truth, most successful strategies and mindsets so you can level up. We share from our shoes so you can walk in them. Here, the only rules are authenticity, respect, and being in service of every human having the lives they want. Join the movement. Welcome to the We Leaders podcast. Now let's go make history. I am ecstatic today because I have someone who I haven't known for so long, but I feel incredibly connected to her. And I'm so excited for her to kick off this summit for you as a leader, as someone who wants to become profitable quicker. And there's different ways to be profitable. She has a lot of the keys and actually the core key to how organizations can become profitable quicker in this day and age. So welcome, Jaw-Madson. Thank you so much for being here. She's amazing. She is culture. She's leadership. She's written her books, as you can see. She's design of work experience. She's actually running a course right now at Stanford. They requested that she does that. Really, really incredible for organizations. And as we're going to talk today, we're going to talk about how to create proven business growth. And so whether you're a current leader in an organization, whether you've built your own business, whether you are growing your business, whether you want to, or you just hope that you're becoming that, this key factor that she focuses on, as you can see behind her culture, you're not going to want to miss this because history has shown that organizations haven't completely focused on this, and she's cracked the code on how to actually accelerate organizations and people on how to get this right earlier and quicker ever than history. So she's an author, she's a founder, she's a speaker, absolutely incredible. So I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing your time.
Thanks, Alana. It's great to be here, and it's always a pleasure.
Thanks. All right, awesome. So as usual, as you've probably heard these other speakers, you're going to hear all these other guests that come on. I'd love for you to share your story about really how you got to the core, because in business as a leader and profitability and, working into how to create teams of successful people, it's not an easy task. There's lots of moving parts, but you've really, like I said, gotten to the core of where it all starts, of how it all really is created. So can you share a bit of your story about how you got to where you got to and what your true kind of give to the market is and how you're empowering organizations?
Sure. Well, I'll start with my personal story, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Growing up with immigrant parents who moved around a lot, I had experiences as a child that made me wonder even then why things were the way they were. And I couldn't name it, but it was culture, So it's been a lifelong journey for me in terms of learning, thinking about, studying, explaining, sharing, all around culture. So this has been a lifelong passion for me. And it's been, so I went through not only my childhood thinking about it, but also my undergrad and my graduate education, as well as my career. And I grew up in HR, but I've been an independent as a consultant since 2013. And that's allowed me to focus on what I love 100% of the time.
Yeah.
It's been a great journey. So that's kind of how, in a very, very small nutshell, how I got here.
Amazing. And I love the culture aspect because as you and I both agree, culture is, in my way I say it, is culture is king. Culture is really getting to that essence. So how did you, because you come from, immigrant background, and so you came into it, kind of assimilating to a different culture. How did culture become so important to you? Like, why was it that, and you see that in business, what was that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just so, you know what it is? It's so pervasive in everything. This is the thing. It's the one thing that's always there that not everybody always understands or acknowledges.
Right.
And I think that's part of why I'm going out there and trying to share as much as possible, because at the end of the day, um, culture is what makes a difference when it comes to results, right? And so you're talking about profitable growth. And for me, in my world, those are one and the same, because can you achieve maximum growth with a toxic culture? And the answer is no. And I'm talking about growth not only as a business, but as people, collectively. And for
Right.
me, you said culture is king. I put the analogy of culture as like water. It gets into every aspect of your business. It's not the responsibility of any one person or department or role, because all of us living in these systems and connective networks of people are both contributing to or interacting with, going two ways, into what creates a culture. And so it is just that important to the life of a business, and it's either an asset or it's a liability,
Yeah.
right? And
100%.
so my cause is to help people understand that they can't achieve business growth without their people, without the talent in their organization. And what can you do to make sure that that's an advantage for you as opposed to a disadvantage? And
Agreed.
that's actually the name of my course that's going to be at Stanford Continuing Studies, which is Achieve Competitive Advantage Through Company Culture.
Beautiful. And I love that I love that Stanford, by the way, because they're very selective about who they bring on to teach people. And obviously, and I agree with that too. Like you said, culture can be a toxic environment. But I'll also say, because we've talked about this, if left undefined, which the majority of history does usually in businesses and leadership and whatnot, if left undefined, it'll create its own culture, right? Which then you kind of wonder, is it toxic? What is it not? But speak to that too, because you really empower leaders, individuals, businesses as a collective whole, but as leadership top down, but as a whole, to create that to very clear.
Yeah. So my whole cause is around this understanding that culture, in order for culture to be an asset, it's got to be intentionally designed, implemented, sustained, managed. And so without that, to your point, you risk the potential to allow certain pockets or aspects of that culture to kind of infect the rest of the organization. That's a real challenge for some organizations. And so this whole time when I was going out and talking about this, it became really clear that what was lacking is the capability of managing culture. And so that's why I wrote my book, Culture Your Culture, because it's providing design of work experience as the step-by-step how-to for culture, and allows people to intentionally design for culture according to their unique context. Everything before that I had seen was around archetypes of what's good and bad culture. I think you and I know instinctively what those are. Or there was a lot of books out there around, here's how we did it, right? So these are the one big company case study that may or may not apply to your organization, and it certainly happened in a completely different context.
Right.
So I felt that, as a person that spends 100% of my time, I know I can't do this for everybody, but if we enable people to be able to do this on their own, then I think we have a chance of really making sure that it's managed like any other business asset in organizations.
Yep, exactly. And as you've seen, and we're in the Silicon Valley, we've come from the heart of the innovation within the world in a lot of ways. And we've seen these gargantuan companies that have made it, like the Facebooks, like the et ceteras, right? The Googles. We've watched them go from small to large, and they get how important culture is. So learning from history, right? And proven, you've been there, you've seen a lot of that happen, right? So one, your book offers individuals and companies to really take that and be immediately impact their organization, to be able to create that earlier, right? You don't have to wait until you either potentially fail, which 90% of startups do, or businesses, um, or you get kind of lucky, or you make it, and then you start to create your culture. So I think what you
Yeah,
offer is brilliant.
went through this pretty extensively. There's really never a bad time to start working on your culture. So this whole, do I do it now or later? You do it. You have to do it all the time. And even if you quote unquote get there, you still have to sustain it, and you still have to evolve, because your organization, your business is evolving all the time, and your culture has to evolve with it,
Yeah.
along with your leadership, employees, and your employee experiences. All those things have to align and work together in an ever-changing environment.
Yeah.
So there's never a bad time. Yes, I work with startups who want to be able to create the foundation from the very ground level up and scale up quickly, without the same pain points, I think, that some other organizations have gone through. And then there's also established organizations who need to transform in order to remain competitive.
Yeah.
And so that's a change management or transformation initiative. But there's never a bad time. It's not, oh, this has to happen and then we'll deal with it then. Culture is happening no matter what, all the time.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's the thing.
Exactly.
And so the sooner you can manage it with capability, the better,
Yeah.
So,
Exactly. Being in, like, to your point, and we've talked about this, is being very, as a leader within an organization, whether it's your company or whether you're in it, being intentional about creating your culture gives more probability and possibility to potential, longevity of your organization. Because if you do it, like you said, I work with clients as well. It Wherever you start, wherever you are in your history, it's never a bad time to do it. Yet, like with you, I know that if they start earlier, it's so much easier. It's so much easier,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I'm talking about those foundations include, the purpose of why do you exist? Your mission, your vision, your values. And the minute you articulate those and the experience doesn't match it, you've kind of created intentionally a mismatch and something that's going to be discordant in your organization. So it's always about making sure that those pieces are aligned and setting the conditions so that people can thrive. And when they thrive, they're engaged, they're productive, they're innovative. I mean, there's so many positives to having a great culture. I mean, and I think you and I know as individuals, and having had many jobs in our lifetime, is where did we perform at our best? And
Right.
it needed the right environment in order to do that.
Right. Right. And the environment that we resonated with, that, and if you're building organizations, your people, whether they be contractor or part-time or W-2s, they're going to identify with you or not. And so one other piece that you mentioned on top of something that they'll get through culture is they'll more easily retain their people. I mean, it's
Yeah.
far more easy when you create your culture like you do with organizations, because it's clear up front. Like, you do a lot of talent optimization. You focus on how to work in the culture aspect to hiring, to retaining, but all doing that at the same time, right?
Yeah, talent optimization comes down to bridging the gap between a company's business strategy and the results they're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And then so I use tools by which they can diagnose, design, hire, and inspire the right people, and making sure that there's alignment between individuals and their manager, individuals and their teams, and with their organization. So at all different scales, to make sure that and I would say, in this day and age, yes, retention for the right amount of time is the key. I think there's no such thing as lifelong employment anymore. We can't count on that. But what we can do is optimize for the time in which people are there,
Right.
with experiences that maximize not only their productivity and their ability to innovate, but also the brand of the organization as well, right? Because reputation matters. The
Oh,
social
yeah.
impact they have on their environment matters. So that's what I mean by talent optimization. And I think so many organizations don't use their greatest asset
Agreed.
to the highest degree possible, right? So it's the optimizing the talent managing change, and setting the conditions with the right culture. All
Right.
those things aren't happening.
Yeah.
Even though I think instinctively leaders know that they should, they don't know how, which is why I'm providing design of work experience. And then it's about making sure that the motivation is there to actually try and maximize their assets. And
Right.
their, yeah.
Right. Yeah. And to your point, I think leaders think about, they know it's important, but they wait until too long, until there's pain or there's loss of profitability, of turnover, of their own culture. And one thing I'll say about what you do, and why I'm a huge fan too, is it doesn't have to be long and lengthy and painful to do what you offer, is to create that culture. Actually, you make it fun, you make it easily implementable. And so with people who are building businesses or within a business, there's so many things we have to do. And so we have to pick some of them. And a lot of times we try to pick the things that aren't as heavy or intense. And sometimes culture, because people aren't an expert on how to create it, it can feel heavy. And what you bring to the market, what I've seen, is the ability to partner with leaders and organizations quickly as a partner, and have them really get empowered very quickly and clear, so that the rest of their results and goals are immediately working for them as an asset versus against them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for me, it's also not just empowering the leaders, but the employees that work for them as well. And so I have something on my website called the 4-week challenge. It's just 4 iterations of what you can do to start asking the right questions and to affect positive change in your organization. Um, and culture can be complex. And in fact, it is complex. And so it's something that needs to be constantly cultivated, in my opinion, and it should be important. It's not always treated as that, and then you see the outcomes of that, don't you?
Right.
Um, these scandals or these bankruptcies or the churn in leadership, all that doesn't happen overnight.
Mm-hmm.
It's culture that has been allowed to devolve over time, and and to me, it's not about just fixing toxic cultures. It's actually eliminating the conditions by which they exist.
Yep.
Right.
Right.
So it's not fixing problems. It's about creating the best version of your organization,
Exactly.
so that you can be successful.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I think that's brilliant, is building it in the most powerful way. And something that you mentioned was, if there are the issues, which I think is key, and I work with organizations too in terms of this, they
Mhm.
see the negative impacts, but you can always bring it back to root cause. And a lot of the times it's a lack of having created a true foundation, which the big part of that is culture.
Yeah.
Right? Is you might see a profit loss, you might see turnover, whatnot. If you really scale it back, you really go to the root, a lot of that has to do with not creating that.
Yeah, lack of a foundation for sure, and also misalignment. So to my
Yeah.
point, misalignment between individuals and their managers or their teams and their organizations.
Yep.
Anytime there's that misalignment, that's actually going to create friction in the organization in not good ways, right?
Yep.
It actually take the focus away from everyone doing the best they can.
Yeah, exactly. And I think and you're going to offer some things in a few minutes, which I think will be great for everyone to experience. One aspect that I will put in the space too is, you're not like just a teacher, you're like a facilitator. You partner with them and also support in regards to the communication as well, because like you mentioned, there's leadership to their employees. There has to be the ability to communicate, there has to be the ability to understand each other. And so it's not like a dictatorship where, oh, I'm going to do this, you do that. It's together.
No, it's a collaborative, for sure. It's a collaborative partnership. It's built upon empathy for sure.
Yeah.
Uh, and so it's so absolutely important for organizations to realize how they can do this and what they should be doing,
Yeah.
in order.
Yeah, exactly. And the world is moving this way. Again, if you look at the big guys, they know culture is the way. They've created that. They're living into that. And sometimes it gets wonky, but then they realign and they keep moving forward,
Well, culture, I mean, as an asset, it differentiates. So it says, why is this organization different than this organization, even if it's in the same business or in the same sector, or competing for the same customers,
Yeah.
is you're always arguing for that value proposition. You mentioned earlier about communication as well. My challenge to organizations is to have them think about what narrative they're trying to build. Because without being intentional about it, there is a narrative going on that's probably out of their own control.
Right.
And the communication aspect is it's not just communicating about what narrative you aspire for. It's about communicating the narrative that you can collaborate and partner with your employees to create.
Right.
So all of this is really important. I actually talk about that in 3 different levels. What does an organization need to learn? What
Mm,
does an organization need to communicate? And what do they need to do to engage? Those are
perfect.
3 aspects of managing the change that comes with creating new culture.
Amazing. And I think that's perfect. So you give a solid foundation and then it's results driven, right? So they build profitability. They are more apt to build profitability from what I've seen. Quicker, faster, easier, not as painful most of the time. Their employees are more excited to work there. And if you have a company, I've seen it, and I've also been in the opposite where I've seen organizations of people that are not happy to work there, and the productivity goes down. Just everyone's life, diminishes.
Well, the other thing I wanted to make sure I pointed out was that, this whole concept of future of work, what kind of future of work are we moving toward? Is it one that's dystopian, or is it one in which it's more utopian, right, in terms of what we want to create? And whether or not companies are paying attention, this future is approaching us or it's already here. That's kind of the reason why I created this other platform called anewhr.com. It's a platform around thought leadership around the future of work, because what we have seen is that change comes no matter what. You can't stave it off. And the companies that survive economic downturns are those that are better equipped, right, to
Yeah.
be able to rise to the challenge um, of all these downturns that
Yeah.
come, right?
Right.
Um, and that's actually proven. There's actually hard numbers around. So yeah, I just think that it's so important for people to think about it, and oftentimes they don't. And that's not my job to convince people. It's the ones who actually understand that they can take advantage of this.
Yep.
That's where I can really make a difference,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
they are taking their chances that whether or not that's going to hurt them in the future. And if they want to be competitive and they want to exist in the future of work, then you got to be able to create those assets that make you resistant
Yeah.
to all the challenges that you have to overcome when it comes to being successful as a company.
Yep, exactly. And to this point, I'll say what I heard and what you said was the resistance also is a solid foundation. You can't go upward if you have a shaky foundation,
That's a
right?
good.
If your people don't trust you, if your culture is kind of this way, you think you're going to be able to, launch upward in times of challenge or tragedy. You're not going to go anywhere actually, because your people are shaky, your culture is shaky, your profitability, everything's shaky ground. So building that solid foundation allows you, like you said, to pivot quicker, launch upward quicker, figure out what you need to do, because you won't have to worry so much about, are the people that I've hired or, what I've created, is that stable for me to do that? Can I take it to the next level?
It comes down to, that's why I talk about talent optimization, because it's about bringing in and making sure that your teams are diverse enough to be able to have the different perspectives that you need, but
Yeah.
share the core values and also are right fit for the jobs that you're hiring them for. All that isn't, the tools exist. I mean, the technology is out there to enable it. It's just that companies aren't taking advantage of it.
Yeah,
And that's
exactly.
where you can get that advantage, because not everybody's doing it. And so those that are actually understanding the importance of it can really have a head up on that.
Yeah, well, we've seen it happen. I mean, the people that start earlier with culture, and how to get talent optimization right before they hire, before they really start scaling, uh, they have, they just accelerate a lot better. So, and we've seen it happen. So the ones that, like you said, are open-minded to it. A huge quote for me is, with Einstein, and he says, the definition of insanity is doing it over and over again. Continually today, we still see companies go, wow, I'm gonna focus on these, but they leave culture, they leave their number one asset, their people, until later.
Well, the contrast to what you just said is, are they a learning organization? Can they learn? And how I define learning is through changed behavior. So these organizations that do the same thing over and over again and expect the same results, they're not learning,
Right.
because they're not changing their behavior. And so I think it's important that organizations that practice great culture are also learning organizations, because they need that in order to continue to evolve over time.
Agreed. And if you're an innovator of any sort, let's just say you're learning, you want to hire people who are learners, who are open-minded and growers. You can't do that without defining your culture. There is no way in building that solid foundation. You're going to hire in the wrong people, and you're going to be innovating, and they're going to not be aligned with that. So the company's not going to move correctly.
And to your earlier point, I think organizations that either don't articulate their culture, or articulate it and don't walk their talk, are relying on people to communicate their own interpretation.
Oh yeah, that the dreaded game of telephone.
Right, exactly. It ends up being a caricature, and so you talk about these these self-perpetuating cycles.
Yeah,
you could see how that could devolve very quickly and exponentially, and but the opposite is also true. The more you build up, the more positive cycles you can create. So.
Yep, exactly. I love this, and I love what you're building out there. And it's from your own. It's not, you didn't wake up one day and go, oh, I think this is important. You actually have lived it. You've experienced it yourself. You've created solutions out of it for not just businesses, but businesses, leaders, people, individuals, to accelerate quicker in their lives, to get to their truth, to live their purpose, because we don't do anything alone, right? So even if you're not a business and you're in your life, there's always teams around you. So how do you build that quicker and better and faster, get profitability sooner, your teams are successful? It's culture. I mean, culture is number one.
Well, we've been studying organizations. We collectively, as a humanity and society, have been studying organizations for like 150 years, or you could even argue even beyond that, right?
Yeah.
If you compare it to philosophy. But the study and practice of workplaces has been going on for well over a century. We've learned so much. It's that organizations are not galvanizing around because we know the answers. Like, it's like having the answers to a test. You know the answers. You just have to take the test, right? You have to do the work behind it.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
No one's going to say, I want to intentionally create a bad culture. I've even had founders tell me, I don't dictate culture. Well, but by not dictating culture, and I'm not telling people to dictate it, but by not focusing on culture, you're sending a message about culture too, right? At the same time.
Yeah, and action is an action. Inaction is action. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's just so much that I can talk about in terms of how to tangibly take action. But the first step is to ask the questions, right? It's the how might we questions that come from design thinking or from appreciative inquiry. What if we were the best versions of ourselves, And so one of my favorite quotes comes out of David Cooperrider. He first said it to me, which is, our worlds are formed by the questions we ask.
Yeah, I love that. I agree.
Questions, we have no reason to think, and change begins the minute you start asking the question.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree. I see so many organizations telling versus asking, which doesn't create the collective collaborative environment of, where we're doing this together. So yeah, I think, again, what you're doing is brilliant, as well as it comes from so much experience. And it will and does accelerate any company that takes it on as early. If there's anyone watching out there and you want to accelerate your organization quicker than your competitors around you or any time in history, focus on culture first, or wherever you are. Even if you have 20 employees, doesn't matter. Invest in it. It's really, it's not a financial drain. It actually is going to serve you for whatever result you want to creating this. And it doesn't have to be hard and it doesn't have to be lengthy, but it is an investment of time, energy, and being committed to your life, to the lives of everyone that you're impacting, and ensuring that you create that solid foundation. So what you're doing is really foundational, which is why I wanted you to kick this off, because all of the business advice, et cetera, is so important. Number one, in my opinion, and I've been through a lot of it. And again, I think everyone out there can attest that potentially they've worked at one place where they just weren't connected to the leadership, or they just didn't resonate, or maybe they weren't fulfilled and they weren't given. That's a culture disconnect. And so we could go on and on for hours about that. But I think what you've shared are some amazing nuggets of gold. All the other guests that we have on here, they all speak to how much culture is so important to the businesses that they've grown. We have serial founders, we have investors, we have global leaders, and they all speak to culture, how it is foundational to the organization, and how some of them haven't invested in it up front, and what impact they've seen, and some that have, and the impact they've seen. So I want to thank you in regard to being here, to helping us kick this off, because you are the foundation of a profitable leader, in my opinion. Because I know through, focusing on the hiring aspect, but up front, before you even see a resume, culture is huge. I start with that. So yeah, you really have kicked this off. All the other guests will share theirs as well. So definitely look her up, look up Karen, and take her on in regards to what she's offered you. Again, it's not painful. It's actually quite fun, and you'll see some impact too. If you can get her book too, it's really impactful as well. So and follow her. She writes a lot, and it's good information.
Yeah, a lot of the concepts here in the book particularly come from innovation concepts. And so one of the things that I raise up is that building culture also teaches innovation skills. So it's like killing two birds with one stone. If you want to become more innovative, then take on a culture initiative, because things that are built in doing that are going to help in the long term.
Yep, exactly. And the most innovative leaders, and anyone that's watching, go research some of the most innovative leaders that are accelerating faster than ever. I guarantee you they will talk about culture. And if they don't, they say something about it. It's all there. It's the now and it's the future. So thank you so much for being here. I enjoy our friendship. I enjoy what you do. I'm so grateful that you do it in the world, because we didn't have this years ago. We didn't have focus on the foundation of organizations and leadership, and just how to have fulfilled lives in general, because it's really about our own personal lives and the lives of people around us. So
I think the most important is finding meaning in our work.
Yeah.
Right. Making a positive difference. That's I think something that a lot of us share, but we don't know how to do.
Yeah.
So,
exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Amazing. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing. I hope you guys got so much out of it. I learn every time I listen to her, we have a conversation. I learn, I grow as a founder, as my own business owner. And I grow for my clients too, and for the world around me. So definitely look her up, check her out. She's amazing. Thank you so much again for being here. So thank you again, Karen, and looking forward to everyone continuing with us and sharing. And this is just the start of bigger things to happen. So thank you again, and we'll see you guys soon. Thanks.